Yo, what is going on, guys? My name is Jared, and today I would like to take you through some product lighting techniques, specifically how I lit this scene that you're seeing in front of you. I'm basically going to build this scene. I'm not going to do any animation, but I'm basically going to build this scene almost exactly as you see here. I'm going to do it from scratch, so it won't be exact, but I just want to go through some of my lighting process in Blender and go through some fundamentals and stuff like that. This is my company, KLOUT PWR, so I do all the content, and so there's tons of examples of stuff like this on our page. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to Wenbo Zhao. I'm a Cinema 4D user primarily. I've only recently made a kind of hard switch to Blender to force myself to learn it because it has a lot of features that I like, but the learning curve has been a little more difficult than something I'm used to. So Wenbo Zhao is a master product photographer, and he's taken his skills to the CGI world, and he, I think, exclusively does videos on lighting and texturing. I could be wrong about that, but he is great at what he does. So if you want to learn some of the fundamentals and actual philosophy behind different lighting setups and why they work, go to him. Today I'm just going to take you through some of my process as I set up a scene like I showed you before. I will be working in Blender 3.4, but this should work in any version of Blender as long as you're not here years from now and they've changed a whole bunch of stuff. Let's go ahead and get started by, I'm going to delete my person. You can delete your cube if that's what you have. All we're going to need really for this is a shader network, a viewport, and our attributes and layers. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to do the basic task that everybody has probably seen of creating an infinite background. But if you haven't, I will go slow for beginners because it would annoy me as a beginner if somebody flew through that. So I'm going to add a plane by Shift-A, Mesh Plane, select it, tab into Edit, and then we're going to select these back two vertices, hit E, Z, to extrude along only the Z axis. Select the bottom two now, and we need to Control B for bevel, and this is how we create this infinite background. And I'm just scrolling up on my mouse wheel to do this. I know I need to get the screencast keys thing. I haven't looked into how to do it yet. I will. Tab back into object mode, and now we have our infinite background. I'm going to right click it and hit Shade Smooth, and now we basically have the general, I mean, that's all of the like scene setup technically that's not lighting related. I'm going to bring in my product from my asset library. If you want to learn how I textured this product, you can do it at the link in the description or the cards over there, I believe. It'll pop up right about now. So we'll just zero out the position here except on the Z where I need it to be up here. And I'll go into render view just so you can see, or I guess you can't see. For the moment, I will turn up my HDRI to like 5 just so you can see what I have here. This is what I'm going to be working with, and so lighting products like this is fundamentally pretty difficult because there's a lot going on. There's a pretty detailed normal map that is also reflective. There's chrome right here. The main product itself is very reflective. So this is generally just a challenge as far as a lighting scenario goes. So as you can see, my world setup by default has this HDRI setup in it. The background part of this and the light path, like the whole mix shader thing, isn't even necessary for this because we gave it a background with this infinite cycloid that we made. But this is what I have in my default file. I like to have some unique reflections. So as you can see, just alt mouse click. As you can see, there's some interesting reflections going on here that I wouldn't be able to get with just regular lights. And I like to have that on a product like this that has a ton of reflections. But as you saw at the beginning, when I first turned on rendered mode, I keep it very low. So this was at 0.15. I just like to have some of these reflections here. I don't like it to actually contribute to the lighting very much. And then the texture itself is just pumped through a hue saturation value with the saturation on like 0.15. or 15% technically. So that's my whole HDRI setup. I just wanted to show that. You can basically just copy the node tree if you want to. It's not a big deal. And now we are ready to create a light. So we are going to be lighting this with not point, sun, spot, or area lights. We're going to light this with emissive planes. And so I just added a plane in. I'm going to go RX90, RX90, RZ90. So that's 90 degrees on the Z and the X axis. And I'm going to just move it along the X, scale it down a little bit, and then all we need to do to get started here is add in a texture, delete the principled, and we're going to drag in an emission. Okay, I'm going to set this to like 10, and if I go back into my camera, you can see we now have some light. I'm going to move along the x-axis until we're a little closer, basically bring it just out of view. And so now you can kind of see like the general direction that this is going, but you might be asking why we didn't just use an area light, because it seems at the moment like it's accomplishing the same thing, and it basically is. But you can see in our camera view that we have these crazy harsh, there's no fall off to this light at all. Like basically wherever the reflection from the plane edge ends, so does our light. And so there's a way, it's just not very appealing on super reflective products. And so there's a way with this that it's much harder to do with area lights. It takes a lot more finesse and control with area lights to create a fall off here that is much more visually appealing. And so I'm just going to kind of stay in this super zoomed in view while I do what I do next so that you can kind of see. We are going to take this color, drag it out, and add in a gradient texture. And you can see immediately that this is now much softer, the light itself. Okay? So you can kind of see, why that would be appealing. And this is why I use this method and I don't use area lights. Again, shout out to Wenbo Zhao for this. I'm going to add in a color ramp in the middle here. And so this will even give me more control over how much fall off I get here. So like if I, move this, we can get a harsh light and kind of move it around. Or we can take the backside of, or the white side of this gradient and move it around. And so you get a whole lot of different control. And I click this little plus here to add a point in the middle for the grays. And you have so much control over the fall off of this light now. And it didn't take very much at all. If you were trying to do this with an area light, you would have to either use IESs or play with angles and stuff like crazy to get this same effect. And so that's why I use this. And so if you're just here to learn how to make the light, that's how you make the light. You can take this gradient texture, hit Control T as long as your Node Wrangler add-on is enabled, and then you can play with the rotation values to get even more control over this. And it's just really cool. I mean, you can create all kinds of different lighting setups with this light. But now I'm just going to go through kind of how I would set up the scene, how I set up that scene with the watermelons falling. I'm not actually going over that part, but just visually how I set it up. And so to do that, I'm going to take my models here and kind of rotate them around, put them on a little bit more of an interesting angle. So to get started with setting up this scene, I'm first going to make this emission a little brighter, and I'm probably going to take it to like 18, and then I'm going to duplicate it across to the other side of this. And so what's fun about this now is that for each of these planes, you can obviously just go and alter this material so that you have different light fall off per material. And so that's obviously incredibly useful. I'm going to take this and rotate it on the Z-axis. And I just want to create kind of a little highlight here in the middle of the product, hitting some of these chrome elements, highlighting this normal map. I mean, the texturing on this label is gorgeous. And so I'm really just trying to highlight different areas of the texture without having like an insanely large, too many insanely large areas of light. And so this is all scene building. It's very, very personalized to your scene. I'm just kind of taking you through my process and how I would normally light something like this. Tell you what, for my world, I'm probably going to need more fill light from it on this one. So I'm going to take this HDRI up to like a 0.5 maybe, just to get, I need a little more out of the chrome in this logo without me having to add a whole bunch of other lights. But I also don't want the reflections to get too crazy. So it looks like one is going to be about right for me. You know, if I turn these planes off, one is still very dim. So most of the actual lighting is going to come from what we do to the scene. Next, I'm going to need some sort of light source coming from the top. There's some contour on this bottle that it would be good to highlight that we're just not really getting at the moment. And then obviously a ton of data is just lost here in the center. So I'm going to add in a light from the top. I'm going to duplicate this one on the left that has you know, very little gradient to it. I'm going to go Shift D, Z, and we're going to go RY90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the Y-axis. And so now we have this kind of top-down light that we can play with to create highlights on the front of this bottle. And as you can see, we're already getting from this a ton of help on this contour of the bottle. Again, we don't want too much highlight, and we don't just want to overpower this with reflections. That's the whole reason that we use this lighting method, is to not overpower with reflections. And so I'm going to take this material and duplicate it onto itself, and then we're just going to kind of play with this until we get something that's desirable. And it's looking like this is going to be good. I'm going to play around with the Y rotation here. Just kind of see what I get. So you can see as I bring this up, we're like we lose the gradient basically. And so somewhere right around, I mean, honestly, 0 is probably best here for this, but this is why I do this. I'm just showing my process. This is how I would light a scene like this, essentially. And so I'm going to add a material to the background here. I'm going to do basically the same thing that I did for the video, and that is just to create this kind of material here. Oh, do I have... Oh, at some point I duplicated that. And now I'll just give this greenish backdrop. And so we're fundamentally getting pretty close to what we have here. This has obviously been through post. This has depth of field. This has a whole bunch of stuff added to it. But fundamentally, we're getting there. I need a rim light. I need something to highlight the back edges of this a little bit. I'm just not really getting any sort of dimension out of this at the moment. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to Shift D X, and then we're going to go RZ90. And then we're going to move this on the Y-axis until it's back here. And this light, we are obviously going to need to not have it visible to the camera. And so to do that, we're going to go into the object properties, visibility, ray visibility, and disable the camera. And so now that adds a ton of dimension to this scene as far as just really making the product itself something that pops off of the background. Sorry, I'm trying to find that's an immense difference in just the depth of the image overall, because you can really sort of understand where the product is coming from, in my opinion. Move this down even more because I just want this to be a clean background. We don't need any sort of floor shadows or edge shadows or anything like that. And so we're really close here, and the main thing that is left as far as my scene goes here is to highlight this chrome element that's on the front here, and while we're doing that, provide some more data to highlight the normal map that is so gorgeous on this product. And so what I think I'm going to do is duplicate this one from the right because it has a much more subtle kind of light to it, I guess. We're going to duplicate it along the y-axis, and I'm going to rotate it along the z. And then I'm going to kind of just move this around here for a second. I'm just moving, rotating, scaling. I'm going to go ahead and hide this because obviously it's going to end up in front of the camera. Right about there. And then let's see, that's obviously on this side of things. We're going to go right here. Not as good. And I'm going to take this, drag it up. Okay. My edge is too harsh on this still. So I'm going to play with this for just a second. We're going to take this to easing, the gradient type. I'm going to take rotation to 0, and then just so I can kind of see this texture a little bit. I'm just not exactly getting what I want from this at the moment, and so there's going to be a little bit of trial and error here. That is much closer to what I was looking for. Okay. So I'm just kind of creeping this up here, and as you see, I have this, this is what I mean by the normal map is so gorgeous. It just is reflecting this light in such a stunning way, and it's what creates these, I guess I should probably show this one more so. It's what creates these crazy reflections in the tactile background on these products. And so that right there is about where I would have this sit for animation purposes. I have my chrome that's highlighted. We have this gorgeous kind of underlighting on this tactile here. There's a much bigger highlight over here of what exactly that is. Our rim light, which is plane 3 here, gives our shot insane depth. And then we have just another regular kind of highlight over here that we could probably honestly do without, I suppose. I'm gonna move it back so that it really is more of a highlight than anything. I don't want it taking up too much space here. And so if I were doing this for my my brand itself, I would clean up this reflection right here. This being a pure chrome map is kind of hard to deal with, but I would clean this up just a little bit, but fundamentally, this is how that shot was lit that I showed you in the beginning. I just want to take you through some of my thought process as far as lighting a scene like this goes. So, as you take these elements and move them around, you have some crazy good dynamics on the different parts of it. So that is my lighting process. I will probably do some shorter versions of this video, but I needed to kind of pare down my thoughts, and so I'll go ahead and put this up as like a, for those who really just want to watch me sit here and think about it. But yeah, this is how I think about lighting, especially in the case where there's really glossy products. And so yeah, I hope this was helpful in one way or another. I appreciate you watching. Please leave a like and a comment if you have any questions, comments, or criticism, and I will see you in the next video.